Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Jay Helms. I'm the founder of the W2 Capitalist podcast and movement. We are here to help you build wealth through real estate investing while you earn, invest, repeat your way up to the corporate ladder. Today's guest is a special guest. I had him at the W2 Cap Summit a couple of weeks ago. He and I share a mission to help Operation Underground Railroad, Mr. Bill Allen. Bill, welcome to the show. Hey, I got a little story for you real quick. You may not know this. You used to live in Pensacola. You still invest in Pensacola, right? It's kind of where you got your start. Is that right?
Yep, that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
I live in Nashville now, but yeah, Pensacola for like the first 5 years.
So the very first RIA meeting I went to, again, I'm an introvert, right? And I don't like big crowds or whatnot. You came up to me and introduced yourself. And I was like, all right, I can check that box. I met somebody here. I'm going to go away now. Right. So that's, you probably don't remember that. But you were well on your way to doing blackjack, real estate, and then getting into this 7-figure flipping, which we're going to talk about a little bit. But let's just start at the very beginning, right? So 4 or 5 years ago, was it 6 years ago when you started? No, it was longer than that.
Yeah. So I started kind of flipping houses about 7 or 8 years ago. And then from there, it was just one house a year for a while. And I started kind of ramping up my business probably 5 years ago. So kind of growing. So that's probably when we met, probably about 5 years ago, 2014, 2015, something like that.
Yeah, I believe it was. Yeah, because I was not interested in real estate investing at all until then. And when you say ramping up, holy cow, have you ramped up, right? You went from doing 1 or 2 properties a year to now over 200 deals a year, right? And that includes flipping and also wholesaling. And you're not just in Pensacola and Tennessee, or you live in Nashville, but you invest in Tennessee and Pensacola as well?
Yeah. So I started in Pensacola. I was a military guy. So I kind of, you're right, ramped up from doing 1 deal a year. We did like almost 70 deals the first year. Wow. And then we did 135 after that, then 187. Then we do somewhere in the 160 to 170 range now. So that's kind of the size of the business. I have about 15 people that work for me. So we're in Pensacola, we're in Nashville, we're in Chattanooga, Tennessee, we went into Huntsville, Alabama, a couple like little areas of Kentucky, and now we kind of just cover the Southeast. We've done a couple deals in Atlanta, a couple in Memphis, and just if stuff comes up, we'll do the deal and we'll try to figure out how to get it done. So, it's interesting that you mentioned that. I don't necessarily remember that RIA meeting where we met, but I do remember exchanging some emails after that, like kind of, hey, I want to do a deal together. I have the thing under contract. Will you I want to borrow some money, stuff like that. So if I go back to the archive of that early, I could probably find a pretty interesting email exchange between you and I. So I remember it, not exactly what we were doing, but something like that. Like you had a deal under contract and you were looking for some funding. And I think we started talking about that. Is that right? Remember that?
I do remember that. I think it was a buddy of mine.
I'll find it.
Yeah. It was a buddy of mine who, I want to say you ended up doing a deal with him, but I was trying to help him out because he had this property. Long story short, he had this property. He didn't want it anymore. He just wanted to get rid of it. And I think you ended up doing a deal with him. And that was a couple of years ago that all happened. But I can tell you, from that very first interaction, you and I both have grown. You've exponentially grown. I'm hoping to, as I put in the message the other day to you, hope to follow in your footsteps. And then you had some color commentary back at me with how many jobs you've got and all this good stuff. So, but it doesn't feel like work, right? Because you're able to focus on this mission of helping people out, not just Operation Underground Railroad, but helping people understand how to flip a home, what to look for, how to wholesale a property, that sort of thing, right?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I always say, like, when I was flying airplanes and helicopters for the Navy, I said, I'm going to keep doing this until I stop having fun. And I still get to do it. So I'm still having fun doing it. So it doesn't feel, none of this stuff feels like work. And if it does, I think, you got to kind of follow your passion. So I love doing what I do. And in the beginning, it was about the houses. Like I really did love swinging the hammer and doing that stuff with the houses. But I kind of got past that. I really love now the team and the impact and stuff like that we can make. So that's that's where I spend most of my time now, is kind of on the leadership, personal development side with my staff and my team and building that out. And that doesn't feel like work at all. Like that's so, when you make an impact on somebody else, whether it's a seller or a buyer or your staff, I think that's really where we get a lot of our, I don't know, it kind of fills us up, right? At least it does for me.
Yeah, definitely. It is extremely rewarding. I was about to say I used to coach a sales team, and my focus was on growing them as individuals, because I felt like if I did that, then they would excel at what they were there to do, right? To sell those products. And we were doing really good. This COVID stuff just got us, but yeah, it's growing individuals. And it's funny you say that about when you first started, you wanted to swing the hammer and you want to do all this stuff. Most people that I talk to when they're starting out, they do that same thing, right? They seem to follow a similar path as everybody else, and they want to manage their own properties. They want to swing the hammer. They want to do the rehabs. And as much as I can tell them, obviously I'm not have the right messaging to where they understand, right? That is not necessarily the path you have to go. Maybe do it once, maybe do it twice, just to kind of get the experience, but don't necessarily think that you have to do that, right? Do you run into that a lot?
Yeah, I do. I agree with that. I also, I think that I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with it personally. I think we all are kind of on our journey. I think that's just, for me at least, my background being an engineer, doing all the things that I've done in my past. It's like, I don't know. I feel like I need to learn things before I do them. It's a problem that I've had my whole life pretty much. Like I'm very, just want to know what's going on. I want to understand it. Like right now I'm diving into like Facebook advertising and marketing and doing all this stuff. And I'm testing little things and I have a team and a staff that does that, but I'm like running my own ads almost in competition to them because I want to get better. Like I want to figure out how, like I need to learn that stuff in order to make sure that I hold those people accountable. I don't have to be really good at it, but I have to know the concepts. But I don't feel like we always have to do that. So it's interesting. It's kind of like a catch-22. So for me, I definitely push people away from swinging the hammer. But I think when we're getting started, like if that's something that you want to do and you want to learn how to do it, do it. Like don't be, just because everybody says, oh, you got to build this huge team and you got like this guy's got 15 people that work for him. He does hundreds of deals. Like that's all well and good, but I definitely didn't start that way. So a lot of times we're not necessarily relatable once we grow and scale. But in the beginning, I was the guy who was going to Home Depot back and forth. And what I figured out was I don't want to do that. I know a lot of people that really like doing that. So that's okay. Like everybody, your business and your life should be by design, you should be doing what you want to do. And the journey that you are going on is part of what you need to get to your destination. So looking back, like I wouldn't have changed a thing. And yeah, there's a lot of people where, but once they get to doing like 15 or 20 deals a year, I will start slapping their hand and saying like, stop going to Home Depot and doing these $10 an hour tasks or putting lock boxes on your house or things like you shouldn't be doing that at that point, unless you absolutely love walking the halls of Home Depot. And if you do, then okay, like if that's something that just like emotionally fills you up, then fine. But I didn't. So I was able to, I enjoyed doing it at the time, but it's really what started to frustrate me. So yeah, I totally agree.
All right. So now we're back, right? So for those of y'all listening, we had a little bit of technical glitch. We think we worked it out, hopefully, but I'm more of a Lowe's guy myself, and I do feel comfortable. I do just like exploring the aisles. I don't know why. I kind of wish I had one of everything, reasonably close, which the Lowe's is like a mile away. Anyway, I think you get the experience and then you move on. Don't get caught into a trap of being the guy that's got to put the lock on the door or being the guy that's got to swing the hammer, that sort of thing. The question is, when do you know to scale, right? I'm in the same boat, right? Up until last week, I was to a point where I'm growing this business, I'm growing our investments, but at some point in time, I had to invest in people. And now that I've got a little bit more free time on my hands, I'm investing in myself, right? More. But eventually, I'm going to hit this point where I've got to take the leap and do some investing in the business. At what point in time did you realize that in your flipping business or your wholesaling business that, hey, I've got to hire person number one, right?
Well, yeah, for me, I think it was pretty easy. I think and I wouldn't say easy, like it's not an easy decision, but I got pushed into it. So I was a full-time Navy pilot. I was flying 10 or 12 hours a week, or 10 to 12 hours a day. So every day,
Yeah.
5 days a week, and one weekend a month, I would have to leave and fly somewhere and be gone. So I was going to start marketing. I was going to start I wanted to grow a business, and I knew I couldn't do it by myself. So what I did was, I hired my first assistant. I just had to. I needed somebody to answer the phone. So I got kind of, pushed into that. I think for those people who already have something, they've created it themselves, they've started to grow something on their own. I don't think you're ever really ready. I think if you're asking yourself, like, maybe I should hire somebody, the answer is probably yes. I always recommend people hire a little bit ahead of their needs, because if they wait too long to hire somebody, you're probably like hamstringing yourself and holding yourself back. So what I try to tell a lot of folks is just assess what you're doing. And if what you're doing is tasks that can be, and are you turning things down? Like, are you stunting growth? Are you saying no to deals because you can't handle it? Are you just maxed out with your time? And I remember one of my mentors used it like this cup analogy. He's like, just think of you're a cup, and you're filling that cup up with water, and that cup is overflowing. What you need is you just need another cup to start catching some of that water. And eventually you can kind of dump out some of your cup into that cup. And then it allows your cup to be able to have some more capacity to continue to grow and get filled up with some kind of higher level things. And then eventually your cup's going to fill up and their cup's going to fill up. So you're going to have to dump your cups into another person. And that's what I did. I just like hired one person. We kind of outgrew our capacity and our ability. And then I would hire another person and then one more person. But it wasn't like going out and hiring 5 or 6 people right away. So that's my biggest recommendation to people, is really like challenge them to push them to hire a little bit ahead of the need. Because if you wait too long, you're always going to say, a lot of people say like, I'll hire somebody when, and usually it's when I make this amount of money, when we make more money, but you're not going to make that more money unless you start offloading some of the lower level tasks to somebody and allow yourself to grow and expand. Basically delegate and elevate yourself and your time. So I would say, I don't think it's, if you don't have the money to pay somebody for 6 months straight, then, or the business to roll in where you're confident that you can make a commitment like that, that's kind of where I tell people, like, if you only have a month's pay for somebody, I wouldn't recommend going out and hiring somebody. Or you can only see a month down the road until your bank account's dry. So what I did was I put aside 6 months of expenses for like marketing and staffing, my staff, that one woman that I hired. And I told her, like, hey, I've got 6 months, let's go do it. And it took 4.5 months to do our first deal together. So, had I only had 3 months of expenses lined out, I wouldn't be where I was right now. So
wow,
that's my recommendation.
That's incredible to think about. And that first deal was a wholesale deal or a flip?
Yeah. So I was flipping a little bit already. So I had, like I said, I was doing about a flip a year. So I was still doing a couple, like a flip or two here and there. And that was my marketing kind of machine ramping up. So I started sending some direct mail, getting leads, going directly to seller, not relying on the auction or realtors and things like that. Once I really learned what wholesaling was and the off-market possibilities, it took from like starting that person on pay to getting our first wholesale deal was 4.5 months. So she was putting lock boxes on houses, turning on utilities, doing some of that stuff for the like 2 flips that I had going on.
Right.
So I did have a little bit of other work for her to do. And she was also doing the bookkeeping. She was answering the phones. She was running the CRM, doing all that kind of stuff. So just write down the tasks that you're doing right now and figure out what you can offload. That's the best way to hire that first person. And it seems like a big leap to go from like nobody to one person. That's the biggest leap. After that, you get hooked or you're addicted, and watch out, because your growth can be exponential. I think it's the same thing with the real estate investors. You go from never doing a deal to doing one deal. Like, that transition is so hard and so big. Like, once you check that box that you've done a deal, from 1 to 100 just becomes a lot easier. It's that 0 to 1. Same thing with employees and staffing.
Yeah, you stole my line. I was sitting there starting to connect the dots. I'm like, wow, what you're talking about is, and it happened for me. I'm sure it happened from you. When you do your first deal, it seems like an eternity from 0 to 1. And then from 1 to whatever the number is now, you're like, wow, this is so easy. So that's a mental mindset I've got to get over. So I'm, kind of not reinventing the wheel, but circling back to that concept. in doing that. So let me ask you, we're recording this May the 6th. We're in the middle of this COVID thing, right? There are states opening back up. There are, everybody's got a prediction, right? Airbnb just announced yesterday that they're laying off 25% of their staff, which is like 1,900 employees. And then, Zillow made this recommendation that house sales are going to plummet 50%, and then price drops are going to be 2 to 3%. I don't know how they get to that math. I also like to pick on Zillow and how inaccurate they are. But in your mind, and not in just your mind, but as you're doing research, I know you guys do a lot of research on the different markets you're in and keeping your finger on the pulse, so to speak. Where are we now, and where are we headed in the next 6 to 8 months? What's your
Oh
crystal ball
man,
telling you as
you
you're
asked me
smiling ear to ear,
a
man? What's your crystal ball showing
yeah,
us?
a totally loaded question. Put me on the
Yeah.
spot. So, it's interesting. I think, of course, like we had a buying season and selling season of real estate that kind of like took a pause in a lot of states. So, and people aren't putting their houses up on the market right now. So, I think as a house flipper, it's great right now. So we have and we do a lot of research in our markets. And so for every house that sells, we still have a demand for houses and they're selling. Only about half a house comes back on the market right now. So what that does, we already had like a under 2 month supply of houses, which is really low. It's so still a kind of a seller's market, right? And so when a house sells and only half a house replaces it, what do we just have less inventory. And so what we still have the demand. People need to move. A lot of people do still have jobs, right? Or the way that I look at it is people are probably like cooped up in their house trying to think like, what's the thing that they're going to do when they get out of their quarantine?
Yeah.
This house is too small for me. I'm sick of it. I hate this. I hate this floor plan. I hate all this. I have to work from home. I don't have a home office. The way I look at it is I think it makes sense that in Zillow talking about like the number of house sales. So when you look at it like that, of course, we're not going to sell as many houses this year. I mean, it makes sense. Now, should that drive down the pricing of the houses? That's a whole nother conversation. And I don't see how it's necessarily possible that that's going to happen when people are just, and keep in mind, I'm in markets where they're a little bit more aggressive for kind of going, like I went to the gym this morning in Tennessee, May 1st, Tennessee opened pretty much. Restaurants are half capacity, daycares are open, the gyms are opened up, the chiropractors are open, the dentists are starting, like stuff like that is starting to happen here in this state. I know Michigan is still shut down all the way, and Maryland and California and New York, obviously totally different, right? It's very local. So I don't know, my feeling right now is that I think as like us in real estate, I just don't necessarily see how this is going to happen. Now, when the forbearance starts rearing its ugly head potentially, 3 months, 6 months from now, depending on if they tack on these payments on the back of the loan or they're getting kind of like this bulk, like you got to make a payment of 3 months because 90 days goes by really fast. And we still don't have those answers, which is very interesting. So I don't know. For me, what I love to take in the current data that we have and analyze it and make adjustments. And then in the future, like look at tripwires and contingencies to determine what I'm going to do. I haven't laid off any of my staff. I haven't changed any pay structure. I haven't adjusted my marketing right now. We still spend over $40,000 a month on marketing because I want to be the guy that when people start coming out of their houses, so they start like, I want to have deal flow. We saw our deals in April. This is real-time data, like as of today. We usually do about 15 houses a month. We did 9 in April, but we have 22 right now in May. So like basically what we did was it's just kind of like moved stuff to the right. We just kind of moved another month. So I saw buyers kind of like, so I'm in the wholesale market primarily, right? And our flips are first time home buyers, like 3-2 brick ranch, 1,500 square feet, $170,000. Like we don't go over 300,000 ARVs. So in that world, like there's still a huge demand, and the demand is even more right now because nobody's putting their house on the market. People are still moving. People still want to buy another house. They're still looking. They're still out there. Like if we had inventory right now, if I had houses in the $150,000 range in Pensacola, we would have 20 showings the day we put it on the market. That's just what it would be. Nice. So it's very different in lots of different. I'm personally putting a $700,000 house that I own as an Airbnb, which it's fully booked through May, fully booked through June. It makes $15,000 a month in those summer months. and I'm putting it on the market just to see right now. Like, I feel like the spring buying season is going to move to the summer right now. Like, people are still going to want to move before their kids transfer schools and do all that stuff, right? And I think there might be a transfer of population from the northern areas like Michigan, New York, some of these places, down to the states like Tennessee and Florida and the southern states. And there's still this transfer of people. So I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. My inkling is, like, for right now, nothing is necessarily changing. We're trying to buy a little bit deeper if we make sense. The sellers are still not like taking huge haircuts. The buyers want the huge haircuts just because they see blood in the water. But the sellers are still not. They're like, there's nothing that indicates the fact that we should be making an offer 20 or 30% less on their house than what it was yesterday. I think my business is still as great as it was last month, or 2 months ago, or 3 months ago. I think that I don't know, the real estate market is kind of like the last in, first out in this. I think that's kind of just my feeling. So multifamily, like, most people are still paying their rents in our buildings. Our tenants in the single family stuff are still paying. I haven't seen huge impact personally. Now, other people are probably going to have a different feeling of it. I'm very much like real-time data. Give it to me. I don't watch a lot of the news. I don't read a lot of the headlines, because all it does is breed fear in my mind. So I would say my prediction, if you want a prediction, which I hate giving, is that I really do think that, like, our houses that are vacant, that are fixed up, they're nice, and they're priced right, are going to continue to move. And I'm not concerned in flipping houses right now. It may be a little bit easier to find houses on the market. We may see a little bit uptick in foreclosures a year and a half from now in some states that are faster on foreclosure, like Florida. Just take like 3 years for me to get an REO from this, right? Or a year and a half. It's like crazy. And they just won't pay their mortgage for another year and a half and still not be in foreclosure. So, but in other states, it might be a little bit faster, where maybe you see some more deals on the MLS. It might be a little easier to find some properties and deals. And maybe the wholesalers are, some people are moving out of the marketplace. And last 2-3 months ago, we're complaining about competition. Right now, we're complaining about a pandemic. So there's always something. There's always some event that's happening that's causing us to try to figure things out. So for me, I don't know. I may have to become a property manager. I may have to become a bigger house flipper. I may have to wholesale a little bit less, or my wholesale business might take off, because, like, right now, the demand for the buyers are realizing that their pipeline is starting to dry up, and because they put a pause button for a month, and they're going, oh crap, Bill, like, what do you have? What do you have? What do you have? And we assigned like 6 contracts this week because of that. So
that's awesome.
We saw them kind of hit the wall and go, oh crap, what's happening? And now we're seeing them go, wait, I don't think there's a problem here. I'm a full-time house flipper. I can't stop buying. Like, they have to realize that they can't stop buying, because that's how they make money, unless they're going to quit and go do something else. So there's somebody flipping houses and making money in every market, up markets, down markets, anytime. In 2008, when the market was crashing, there were people making money. They're just doing things a little bit differently than the people who aren't. So that's where my mind's at. If long-winded answer to, I'm like you and I have no idea.
No, I appreciate the long-winded answer. You said a lot of stuff in there. I want to unpack it a little bit. And I did turn my video off. And since I've done that, it seems like the audio and video have synced up a little bit better. So you mentioned something. I see all these headlines that COVID-19 is going to cause a housing crash. But what you just explained may actually, COVID may actually cause a housing boom, right? Because the supply is just no longer there.
Well, we're not done having children. We're not done getting a little bit older. The millennials are not done.
Hopefully, my wife and I are. But
yeah, I agree. It's the royal we, okay?
Yeah, I got you.
Society, right? We're like growing as a population faster than we have before. We have people who are becoming in that kind of world, in that time frame of, and there's another interesting thought about, like, all these people that live in apartment buildings that are like enclosed, they're kind of locked in their apartment now, can't go out. These are people who are probably like, man, I wish I just had a house. You know, I want to move into a house. And maybe what it does is it takes those people that are waiting until they're 35 years old to get married and have a house and settle down and do those kind of things out of the apartments, out of some of that stuff, and move into single family houses and buy a house. So it's interesting with I try to always put myself in the other people's shoes. Like, who's renting right now? Who might be looking to buy? Rates are still really low. Yeah, it might be a little like, I know some of the banks are lifting some of their bottom lines, like Chase going to 700 credit score is a little bit ridiculous. But most of the other banks are still reasonable. VA loans are still available, USDA, all that stuff, and they're in the threes. Like if you're complaining about because you were in the 2.75 before, now we're in the 3.4. Like
Yeah.
if you go back to the 80s where it was like 17.5%, it's crazy that we're complaining about 3%. Like
Yeah.
I'm a house flipper. Give me money at 3.5%, 4%. I'll take all that you have. If you have 100 million, I will take it. I'll put it to work. Okay.
All day, every
So,
day.
so I think, it's just kind of interesting to me. I'm not saying that there's going to be a housing boom just because the inventory still isn't there. But like if builders are slowing down and stopping, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Like there's still this pent up high demand. The demand hasn't changed, right? And every day that a half a house goes on the market for everyone that goes pending, like that is a problem, right? That's a problem that we can solve if we own houses, we own real estate, we own those things, or we know how to add value. And so I think I think coming out of this, we are going to see kind of the biggest thing I think we have to make as a business owner, we have to make like 9 months of money or 12 months of money in 9 months. So I know that I actually, like the end of my year has to be more profitable and I have to be more efficient than I was before in order to turn the same profit that I did last year, because I had a bit of a downturn for like a month or two. So and most realtors are probably seeing like, maybe they have 3 months of money that they would normally make that wasn't there. So now that they have to make up that money. So if they did the PPP or got into the EIDL program or some of those things, or the employee retention credits or the sick leave, family leave, all that stuff that's available, then maybe that helped them get through that month or 2 or 3 of slowdown. And that was the whole purpose of the CARES Act. So I think there's a lot of things that are out there for people to keep going. And the interesting thing that we saw in 2001 was we saw a loss of jobs and things like that. But as we bounced back, that bounce back was we started getting the jobs back. Like the market came back, people started spending money again. So I think we just need to work together to figure out what that looks like. And unemployment is at a kind of a record high, right? But it makes sense. Like there's no restaurants are open. The movie theaters aren't open. You can't go to the mall. You can't do all that stuff. Of course, unemployment went up. When we can start doing that stuff again, those people are going to start hiring again. And there were people hiring through this. So we did see kind of a shift, like Amazon and some of the people that like actually saw an uptick in their business here. And we're going to see just like a change of what we do going forward. So my take on it is that I don't think we should be I think the more we freak out, and like there's people that are, I watch some of the headlines, and there's some people that have nothing to do with real estate that are making comments about the real estate market that have no market fundamentals, no idea about it. And they're just making comments off the cuff. And all that does is drive a bunch of people to get scared about what could happen in real estate. So I think like where you get your information from is really important. But look, I'm just a guy in the Southeast that does, in the grand scheme of things, I do a very small number of transactions per year. I mean, 160, 170 is a drop in the bucket for most hedge funds and the bigger players and bigger buyers. And so like, I see my world, and a lot of this is based off like where I stay. And if you're flipping $1.5 million houses, you definitely have a different look at things than I do. And I think it may be something that you make a transition at this point, or start deciding, run your numbers. You might need to take a 30% reduction from the seller to buy deeper, just because of the risk tolerance. So, yeah.
Great answer, man. So let me ask you this. You mentioned you have an Airbnb house, you have some multifamily, obviously you wholesale and flip too. What does your portfolio look like right now? I've heard buy and hold.
So it's good. Yeah. So it's a good question. I have one house that I bought my whole goal was to get to like 10 single family, like A-class rental properties when I started, and make like $10,000 a house, and I'd make another 100,000. And then along with my military flying income, I'd be doing well, right? $200,000 a year, something like that, 225 total. And so I ended up selling almost all of those single family rentals. I sold all of them, actually. I just closed on the last one earlier this year. And I bought a turnkey house in Memphis from a turnkey provider about 1.5 years ago, because I'm a systems guy, and I saw their system, and I wanted to set up a turnkey company down in Pensacola at some point. That was my goal about 1.5 years ago. We got way too overloaded to do it, but I wanted to see their system. So I bought a house from them to watch the progress and all that stuff. So I own one in Memphis. Let's see, I own an Airbnb house. That's a very interesting story. I actually bought it back from somebody. I flipped it 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago. And I sold it to somebody. They sued me about a year ago, claiming that I didn't disclose something. And instead they were shaking me down for money. And I could really feel it. Like the lawyers got, and I don't think it's the seller's fault. I think it's the lawyer's fault. I think they really got their hooks in them and made like the flipper out to be the bad guy. And so instead of like paying them off, I bought the house back from them. So I own the house again. So I kind of had to fall back into that one. So I turned that into Airbnb. It does really well in the summer. It kind of like breaks even in the winter. And so I own that one. And then I own I'm a limited partner in a bunch of multifamily buildings. So I take my active income is my flipping business. And then I put that active income into passive investments, like truly passive. I'm a limited partner in probably like 600 or 700 multifamily units as a limited partner. I'm a general partner in probably like 150 units of multifamily where I raise a lot of money. I'm very good at that. But I don't do any of the property management, running the deal or anything like that. And then I also am a small general partner in a big storage complex. We have a couple thousand storage units that we're building down in outside of Orlando, Florida.
Oh, nice.
So
Nice.
probably like overall, maybe just like a couple thousand units. But like I said, I'm kind of a small partner, like a general or limited partner in all of those. Yeah. So I usually bring the money. I bring my own money. I bring other people that I know in. I'm kind of like a connector and capital raiser in a lot of this stuff.
Very nice. By the way, you said you spend $40,000 a month in marketing. This is for your wholesaling and flipping business. Holy crap, man! What do you do?
Our budget, our budget is 43 to 47,000. That's about where we hit each month for the past, like, I don't know, year and a half or so.
Wow, that's awesome. What do you spend that on? What is a normal breakdown of what that looks like, right? Obviously there's some mailers. I get some of your mailers, by the way, or I used to. I sold that property that you kept sending me. I think I've sent you some texts before. Hey man, take me off your list. It's but
yeah, I'll tell you right now, it costs me more money to figure out how to get you off the list than it does just to continue to mail you. So
I figured that. but
when you sell it, maybe the next guy will get it, and maybe they want to sell it again. So who knows? So.
There you go. But you send out the postcards. I know you send out postcards. And you do some Facebook advertising. You're talking about that. Where do you find most of your leads are coming from? And I know we're getting very down into the weeds, but where are most of them coming from?
No, we can. And so when I got started, direct mail was 100% of what I did. And then I went into online advertising. We went more about like 80% of the deals we got was direct mail, and then 20 was online advertising, about 20%. And now we're around 50-50. So about half of what we do is direct mail, and the spend is about the same. We spend about 23 grand on direct mail per month. And we've really gotten really tight on our list. Like we've strategized a ton of that stuff. We have a lot of, like detail that we do with the list. We chopped our marketing expenses for direct mail by 65%, and we're actually doing more deals. So we're able to squeeze more money out of less expense. When my marketing manager came on, it's all because of her. She's amazing. And so we really kind of looked at the data. I talked about data before. We looked at the last like 5 years of houses that we bought in zip codes and things. We started chopping the zip codes that just weren't producing as much money as the other ones were. So we got we drilled in really deep on the data. And so that's our direct mail. And we typically go into new markets that way. We'll just kind of test a couple of zip codes that we know perform on the cash basis, that there's a lot of demand from the buyers. And so that's about half. The other half is Google AdWords and Facebook. That's pretty much the way it rolls out. We probably spend, and we probably only, just to give everybody, and I think it's nice to kind of remove the curtain from this stuff. You hear a lot of people talk about how much money they make on Facebook ads and Google ads and stuff like that. We probably do like 3 or 4 deals a month from Google, and we probably do like 1 to 2 a month in Facebook. So it's not like we're doing like 10 deals a month from Facebook ads. Those people are looking for us, so it's a little less work. We got to spend money to get them. But from mail, still produces kind of on a consistent basis. So I just look at money in and money out. So it's about half and half, and that's the same. Our deal structure is about the same. I make about 3.5 $3.50 for every dollar I spend, something like that
Nice.
on some of these channels. Some of them are up from there. For me, that's the margins have gotten squeezed lately.
Yeah.
And I'll be the first person to tell you that it definitely costs, like the amount of money we make on a wholesale assignment fee has gone up, but so has our marketing costs. And our marketing costs, I used to be able to get a deal for $1,500 a deal. And now it costs me we're somewhere around 3,000 in the smaller markets, but we're up at 6,000 or 7,000 in the bigger markets, like Nashville, very competitive, anywhere from $6,000 to $7,000 to get a deal. That means I have to spend $7,000 before we get a lead that will turn into a deal. And if you think about that, I might have to spend all the way to the $15,000 before the second one comes in.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's
That's just your marketing spend, right? To get one deal.
exactly. Yeah. And my
That's not what you're
overhead
paying
is
for the actual property. That's just your marketing spend. Yeah.
exactly. And then I have staff and overhead and things like that. So
Yeah.
I think a business my size needs to make somewhere around $3.50 to $4 to turn the profit that the owner wants to make for every dollar you spend on your marketing expenses, because it just depends on your size. When it was just me, it was like all profit, right? Me and one or two other people, I could make $2 for every dollar I spent
Gotcha.
and still make money. But as a
The
bigger
thing
business,
is,
you got to have a bigger margin.
Yeah, and the thing is, you definitely have to spend money to make money, right? So
yeah, and that's the interesting thing that people say, like wholesalers don't need any money. You can get started right away. The more that I kind of understand this business, know this game, I think I did it right. I think I started as a flipper. A lot of people want to start as wholesalers and then move to flippers. Starting as a flipper, if you're interested in the single family world, I really think that starting as a flipper is not a bad thing, but you have to figure out how to raise money. That's the biggest thing for a flipper. If you can raise money and you have access to capital, then I think your risk goes down a bit. As a wholesaler, I have to actually spend money up front before I make it back. So when I tell my story about kind of getting into the wholesaling world, it took me 4.5 months to make that first $10,000. And I was $22,500 in at that time. So I had already spent that. If I rolled up shop by then, I lost all that money.
Yep.
If I was a flipper, at least I'd have a house and an asset and some things that I could sell. So it's interesting. You really, sending marketing out, we don't know when it's going to come back. And that's probably why a lot of people have, like, during all this time, have kind of slowed down or paused, where we've just said, let's keep our foot on the gas, because when they pause, I can take over.
Exactly. Love that. Love that. All right. So we're coming up on time. I want to make sure we talk about two things. Number one, you have this vet summit coming up. And then after that, you and I have got a little special offer for folks as well. But I want to make sure vet summit is actually, I'm just going to turn it over to you. Tell us about the summit you've got coming up.
So I think this is actually a really good lead in, because we talked about house flipping and wholesaling, and we talked about some multifamily and apartment investing and stuff. And in my mind, I really said, like, why do people seem to always kind of start it as a wholesaler or a single family house flipper and then move up into the apartment buildings? Or we've got people that have full-time jobs that like want to flip on the side, but don't even realize that there's other things out there in the real estate world, like investing with a turnkey. Like, I just gave that company $60,000. I have a house I've never seen. I don't know who the tenant is. My check just comes in every month. I get my payments. So that's true, like, passive, at least. I mean, I have to talk to them every now and then, but
it's more
there
passive,
is true,
right?
more passive. And then when we get to really, like, true passive is like, here, apartment syndicator, take my money, you go do it. I'll vet you as a limited partner. And that is passive. Like, I just get an email and a check from those guys. And I love that. So if you have money, there's a way to invest in real estate where you actually don't have to get your hands dirty. If you want to flip houses or you want to go to Home Depot and Lowe's, you can. So what I said, I'm still a reservist in the military. I'm on my 18th year. And so these vet communities and military communities are kind of like popping up in the real estate world, and they're all kind of like spread around and not necessarily working together. So what I said, I do live events. I do like 4 live events a year. We have this big conference called Flip Hacking Live that we do for house flippers and wholesalers, and basically single family acquisition stuff. And so I have the experience in the last 5 years of doing events, like live in-person events. I said, let's do a live event for military veterans and anybody that wants to show up, frankly. But we'll put vets on stage, and what we'll do is make it like a job fair almost, where every niche in real estate is talked about and presented for people to come in and determine where they fit. And what is my personality profile? What do I like? Who do I resonate with? And instead of starting at the bottom, why don't you start like just inject yourself where you fit? And maybe you are a house flipper right now and you said, I want to get into multifamily, but don't know how. Great thing to attend, talk to somebody, like listen to their presentation, talk to them and say, oh, I can see how I could transition from this to that. And, or maybe you're a multifamily investor and just getting kind of burned out. You want to do more velocity and more deals. And you say, well, I want to check out like single family house flipping. So the whole concept was like a job fair for anybody to come and see what's available in all the different areas in real estate, and not just be an event that's about one thing. And so obviously COVID-19 came, and I remember doing the first call with the speakers. We got 20 speakers. They're all either active duty, veterans, or reservists right now. We've got everybody from like an E4 in the Coast Guard who's doing these huge Airbnbs, arbitrage with Airbnb, just doing some awesome stuff, to like an O5 in the military who's still active duty, who's like an executive officer of a command, who's running a turnkey operation. I mean, we have a wide range of people that are going to be on stage. We've got a couple incredible women and moms that are going to come on and talk about how they do it on the side while raising their family. And everybody's got like their story that they're going to tell, and then how you can do it. So that's what we put together. It was going to be in St. Louis at the end of May, but obviously COVID-19 came and crushed us. So we have taken it virtual, which I think it's kind of a blessing in disguise, because a lot of the military members that did want to show up, they couldn't go because maybe they're in Japan or they're overseas or somewhere. So we made it a 2-day virtual event, not unlike what you just did. And that's what it is. May 29th and 30th. It's a virtual event called Veterans REI Live Summit. So it's going to be live online. So Veterans REI Live. And if you don't have to be in the military to attend. Anybody can attend. The cool thing is with your ticket, you get recordings. You get, we've got a couple different packages. We got a VIP that has like my recording from my last year's event at Flip Hacking Live. Some other people have rolled out some courses that they usually sell and just donated it to that middle. And then the elite VIP has, after the event, we're going to do an hour-long question and answer with every single speaker, record that and package it and put in a membership site for them. So they can attend or not attend, but that's the way to sit down and really like ask questions and dig deep in a small group, right? We have only sold a couple of those right now. So, we have 10, 20 people on that call instead of hundreds on the big call. And we can kind of dive into more personal situations. So that's the structure of it. The best part is like 100% of the money, like I'm not making any money off of this. The speakers have bought tickets. So they're not just like getting paid for this. They're actually bringing money in. They bought tickets. They bought tickets to the main event. We all did. And then I asked them all if they want a refund since we're going virtual, and they said, no, just leave it in the pot. Nice. And that's when the ticket prices were more. We've dropped the ticket prices significantly for this. So if anybody's interested in that, it's cool. You can attend, you can kind of skip it and get the recordings. You can do you can attend half, get the recordings, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait. The lineup is massive. So veteranslive.com, they can go grab a ticket if they want.
Veterans Live or Veterans REI Live?
No, veteranslive.com. So that was a domain that I had to pay a lot of money for. So
I bet.
Yeah, veteranslive.com. So
Bill,
yeah. But our plan is to leapfrog into our live event next year. So gotcha. I still want to do this. This is a passion of mine. I want to change military folks' lives. And if you know a military member, invite them to this. Like, this is a great place for them to realize that there's something outside their life.
Yeah, absolutely. Incredible stuff you're doing. So we are running up on time. Real quick, you and I were chatting before I started hitting record, and you mentioned, hey, let's do something to try to get, let me back up. A couple of weeks ago, I hosted the W2 Cap Summit, where we were raising money for Operation Underground Railroad. And if you're watching the video, that's the shirt you've got on, right? Abolish. I am abolitionist.
Yeah, I'm an abolitionist.
Abolitionist. So, I like abolitionist because I can't pronounce words properly. But
it's a tricky one. Nobody knows what the shirt is.
But it's one of those things where, we have talked about, I talked about Operation Underground Railroad and the amazing things they're doing for the expected or anticipated 2 million kids worldwide that are affected by child sex trafficking. And it's crazy to think of how that still goes on in today's society. So the summit we put on, my goal this year is to still raise $50,000 for this year. The summit was a kickoff to that. We're right at 8,900, I think, for so far. You can get access to all those replays at w2capsummit.com. But before we hit record for this, Bill, you offered something. I'm going to let you take the mic from here, but you offered us to get that up to 10 grand. What were you talking about?
Yeah. So I know I've only got a couple minutes with you, so I'll be fast. I am the Tennessee Director for Volunteers for OUR, so I'm a volunteer. I love it. It's a huge passion of mine. We raise money for this charity at our event, Flip Hacking Live, every year. It's my goal to do 250,000. I want to figure out how to raise $1 million in a year for them. So that's a big goal of mine. So obviously, before I asked Jay, like, where are we at? He said, we're just under $9,000. I said, let's get to 10. Like by the time this airs and shortly after, let's figure out how to do that. So hopefully this pushes some of the other speakers to match my $2,500 donation while we were there. Like, I want to push people to figure out like what are you using your stimulus check for? What are you doing with all the money that the government's giving you that you probably don't need? So like figure out, and if you need it, fine. But my biggest thing is like, I'll take that money and put it to a charity, no problem. So for me, I think a great way to go here is, if you're listening to this and you say, like, go to OURfilm.org and watch the documentary. After you watch the documentary, go to Jay's link and figure out how much money you want to give to save a kid. Because of those 2 million kids, 500,000 of them are right here in the United States. And so that is a big eye opener. You'll never look at things the same way. So my suggestion is and Jay, I'll see what you think, but leave Jay a rating and review to his podcast. And screenshot your donation, email it to Jay, and then what I'll do is I'll match your donation until we get to 10,000. Awesome. So I'm ready right now to match whatever it's going to take, 500, 600 bucks additional on top of what I've thrown in the pot, because I want to get him to 10 grand. Because I know it's like going from 0 to 1 house. You go to 10,000, that 10,000 to 50,000, it becomes a lot easier. So let's get to 5 figures.
And you can do that very easily. We set it up very easily for you to donate. Just text W2CAP to 41404. You're going to get a link right to the donation page. And one of the things too, so what I offered during the summit, and I'll do this as well. If you donate $150, I'll send you one of the t-shirts, which I turn my camera off. You can't really see them, but they're the super, super, super comfy t-shirts that we've got. If you do more than $200, I'll send you an entire swag bag, which is a couple of t-shirts, a water bottle while they last. I don't have too many water bottles left. But yeah, thank you, Bill. Thank you very much for everything you're doing. You're an inspiration to me. I know the Veterans Life thing is going to be awesome, and to continue to do the work for Operation Underground Railroad is incredible. It has me excited to do more. Matter of fact, that $50,000, that 50,000 goal actually came from you, right? So
and hopefully me sharing my 250,000 goal makes that $50,000 goal seem achievable for you, no problem. So I'll raise 250 by the end of this year. That's my goal.
All right, sounds good, well, brother. I got to get going. As you and I talked, I have another commitment at 11 that I felt to block out my schedule when we did this. But thank you again. I appreciate it. We will. I'll talk with you soon. All right.
All right, Jay. See ya. Bye.
Thanks, Bo. Hey, one quick question. I forgot to ask you. I'm still recording. Best way for people to get in touch with you?
Go to sevenfigureflipping.com. The number sevenfigureflipping.com. Yeah.
I'll link to that in Veterans Live in the show notes. Sorry about that. Both of us forgot that. I'm looking at the clock and getting stressed out. Anyway,
it's all good, man. Don't leave your fans waiting. Don't leave your fans waiting.
Thank you, Bill. I'll see you, man.
Bye, Jay.
Hey, 4 things before you get out of here today. Number 1, thank you for watching. Sincerely appreciate that. It helps with our ratings with YouTube and all that. And along those lines, speaking of helping with ratings, if you could just hit that like button for me, the little thumbs up, and also subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. If you are a subscriber, thank you very much. I appreciate that. We are trying to grow the presence here on YouTube, and this is you liking, subscribing, and commenting helps with that whole algorithm piece. So let us know. It also helps me know what kind of content you're interested in. And in the comment section, if you just list that one golden nugget that you took away from today's episode, that would really help me out and engage, right? I'll get an alert when you say something about the episode today, when you make it in the comment, and I will respond to you right away. And it'll be me. It won't be anybody else, I promise. And also, I can't let you get out of here today. This is point number 3, I think. I can't let you get out here today, but highlighting this affiliate for us, Deal Check, incredible piece of software. Whether you're doing burrs, you're doing fix and flips, you're doing buy and holds, and buy and holds is single family and multifamily. I used it last week to underwrite an 8-unit deal, and I'm going to be using it for any of our properties up to a certain number. Probably after the 50 range, I get my real heavy duty calculator out that I'll use that, but I'm also going to then take that and put it in the deal check, because the graphs that and just the amount of data they put into the reports that you can provide banks. Hell, I even sent one to a seller. I was like, here's the number. I know you're probably not going to be happy about it, but here's why I sent it to you, because I'm trying to hit these numbers, and we're currently negotiating on that deal. So we'll see what happens. But we have an affiliate code in the description below. Make sure you use that. If you don't, just go to dealcheck.io from any browser, and you can be able to sign up there. Signing up is free, right? So you can use it. You only start paying for it once you need to start unlocking pieces of software. For what I do with it, I'm a buy and hold guy, so from what I need, it's $5 a month when I use the promo code W2CAP. So make sure, whether you use our affiliate link or not, that you use that promo code, because it's going to give you 25% off either the monthly subscription you sign up for, or the annual. They've got 2 different options. The annual gives you a little bit better discount anyway. The fourth thing is Operation Underground Railroad. If you've listened to anything that I've been doing for the last year, you know that I highly support this organization. Again, the promo code W2CAP, you can text that to 41404, and you're going to get an immediate response link back to our fundraiser page, so you can see what we're doing for them. But also from there, you can hop over and see what all they're about. Highly recommend you follow these guys on social media and everything like that, because they're just ridding the world of not only human trafficking, but more specifically child sex trafficking, which is the most disgusting thing that I can ever think of, that this goes on. My heart goes out to those kids, and that's why I support them, right? Having 3 of my own, I just can't imagine them being in that environment. I'll give you a bonus. Okay, that was the 4 things, right? So like, follow, subscribe is number 1. 2, deal check was number 2, I think. I'm losing count here. OUR was number 3. The 5th, whatever the next number is, the 4th or 5th thing, is my hat has been crooked this entire time, and I'm not going to do anything about it. It's fine. It's okay. All right. On a serious note, let's get to work.